Well, hello and welcome back to Gearhead Geeks. Um, in this video, I'm going to discuss something that all my friends and a lot of people who see my videos ask about is tools. And I think it's time to have a practical discussion about tools. Um, you can find all sorts of stuff on the internet about what's the strongest tool, what's the one that's going to you know, uh, not break, or how much stress can you put on it. You can go like to the torque test channel, which is a fantastic channel, by the way. Those guys do a great job of telling you about um, the strength of a tool. But then you have the other side of it. What is the most useful tool? Um, there's a lot of factors that go along with it. The project farm looks at tools and they look at it in different ways. But in reality, what do you need as a mechanic or a hobbyist or an enthusiast or just somebody who needs to just have enough tools to change their oil? So I'm going to talk about some of the things, at least that I think, having been a professional motorcycle mechanic for over a dozen years, working in dealerships, and I also worked on cars for a while. Um, so I know a little bit about tools, but let me explain some of the reasons that I pick the tools that I do. Yes, I am a Snap-on fanatic. If I could have all Snap-on tools, fine, I would do that. But that just isn't practical. Um, I, it's one of those things where you have to look at the type of tool user that you are before you decide what is the best tool for you. So let's talk about some of that stuff and get an understanding of where you fit into the realm of all the tool users. So let's start with um, the bottom end. The bottom end tool user is the type of tool user that has a kitchen drawer with some tools in it, with a screwdriver, a little crescent wrench, maybe a pair of pliers, and goes around the house and does whatever. This video is not for them. It's just not. If they don't care about tools or have to use them for anything other than a minor repair about the house, well, it's great. That's what you need. Fill your drawer up. You're all good. I have a tool drawer like that. But it is not for working on other stuff. Then the next level up is the person who has a little toolbox that might have, and we're going to talk basically about motorcycles types here. Um, as an example. I mean, you can scale it up for cars or do whatever you need to do. But what you do end up having is a person with a toolbox with a few wrenches in it, some screwdrivers, and no garage, just has to go outside and work on their bike and do whatever, maybe take a wheel off so they can take it down and have a tire change or something like that, and maybe change their own oil, and tighten up a few nuts and bolts. Okay, so and tools are just enough to do that, and that's all that they care about doing. And then we'll go to the next level up. Then you have somebody in the garage that might have a toolbox and kind of a roll around toolbox, a small one, and has been collecting tools so that they can do more extensive jobs as they go through. And you can then, have a better selection of pliers, some needle nose, some wire cutters, some regular pliers, some channel lock type pliers, and have a nice little set of sockets and a decent ratchet or whatever it's going to be, and that is the next level. The next level up is pretty much kind of like me. I have a shop around here with a dedicated toolbox back here, and to me, tools are very important. We'll go into that a little bit more, but on this level you have more extent tools. You got taps, you got dies, you have hammers and a selection of hammers, some ball peen hammers and different types of hammers. You might have some body hammers that you're going to go whack around on things with. And you're working on things and you are quite capable of going in and working on your motorcycle pretty much extensively. You can go do that. And then the next level up is the professional mechanic. Now, the professional mechanic has a slightly different need than I do. I do not make my living out of a toolbox anymore. I used to, but I don't. And what you need to do there is when you're a professional mechanic, you need to get the best tools you can that are going to save you the most time. So we'll go into all the different levels and why you want to use different types of tools. And then you have the next level up. And the next level up is the collector. This is the person who has this ultra awesome toolbox with every socket, everything you can find, and just has everything. The type of toolbox, when you walk up to it, you are just jealous that you don't have what this guy has. And that's on a whole nother level. There's a whole bunch of pages out there on Facebook where Snap-on tool collectors or whatever type of tool collectors there are, and they just have these just outstanding, huge monster boxes, and they are, geez, to die for. So I'm not there, but I'm kind of a couple levels down. Again, I don't make my living out of a toolbox. Now, all that being said, what is it that motivates? Why would you want to get Snap-on tools that are so ultra expensive in comparison to like a Harbor Freight tool or a Craftsman or whatever? So we need to kind of explore why a company like Snap-on, who, I mean, sometimes you can look at the prices and it'll make your eyes water. Why are they so successful? Is it just that everybody feels like, oh, because it's so expensive, it's got to be good? No, it doesn't work that way. So let's explore that just a little bit. To understand what you need, first of all, you have to look at the level of work you're doing. If you're not making your living out of a toolbox, you don't need to buy a Snap-on Tool 1. You really don't. There's no reason for it. You can go down to Harbor Freight, you can go to Lowe's, I guess, I guess it's Lowe's, and they have Craftsman, and they have all sorts of different brands. Cobalt, and there are some good brands of tools out there. They work just fine. They really, really do. And again, Harbor Freight's got the Icon brands, which are, look like Snap-on knockoffs and whatnot. And you can do everything you need to do with those tools. You can save money and whatever. So, but let's think about tools in the long run. I started buying tools, and I'm old, about 55 years ago. And I ended up I worked in the original Kawasaki Yamaha dealership in 1970, maybe in 69, somewhere in there. And they hired me to, along with some other people, to put together motorcycles. They just, they come in crates and you have to put them together, and they needed a little help because it was the start of whatever. They got a whole bunch of them in there, and they just needed some labor to do that. Well, pretty soon, it ended up that I ended up working there, and nobody else, all the other mechanics everybody was gone. It was just me. And so I started needing tools. Now, one of the things that happened is that parts guy, who was a really good motorcycle racer. He's a good mechanic. He had this Waterloo box that he had carpeted and everything was laid out so well. And I looked at that toolbox and I was just, oh man, that was the coolest thing ever. And that is when I started to fall in love with tools because I know one thing, and I didn't know it then, but I know it now. Tools can last you the rest of your life. No matter what you do, you can buy a house, doesn't you get a new house. You end up trading up cars the same way. Nothing I know of that you really have lasts you your whole life. And tools are one of those things that do. So getting a good tool and having it last all the way through the rest of your life, so maybe you even hand it down to your children, is something that does happen. And I realize this. Now, all of that being said, is going back to my beginnings. When I was young, there was no credit cards out there. There was no Harbor Freight. There was no, you couldn't buy tools anywhere except for Sears, which had Craftsman. And you could go to the auto parts store, the one auto parts store that was around, and you could buy Proto, or you could, the tool trucks by working at the dealership would come by and you had Mac and Snap-on. And at the time, the Mac tools were a lot less expensive than Snap-on. It's just what it was. A lot of the tools that the Mac dealer had were other brands, like if you, a half-inch impact or an impact, whatever, they didn't have a Mac half-inch impact driver or pneumatic. You got a Rodak. And if you needed a butterfly, you could get a Chicago pneumatic. But there was no specialized ones. And even the Snap-on at that time didn't, I don't remember exactly, but I don't believe they had all of the different pieces that you needed. But the thing that people don't understand is if you were a young mechanic at the time, and you didn't have any credit, you're 16 years old. You have no credit. There's no such thing as really credit cards per se. It just wasn't there. And if you were 16, you ain't getting one anyway. The only way you can get tools is to buy inexpensive ones if you don't have a lot of money. I mean, you're just starting out. I mean, you're making a few bucks an hour. And so for me, the first thing I did is I had a small little toolbox, which I had been using on my little motorcycles at home and whatever. And so I had bought a set of sockets from the dealership themselves because they had these little Japanese ones, and which I still have. I still have my original set of sockets. I'm too much of a tool lover to ever part with them. You couldn't pry those out of my cold dead fingers. But I had a set of sockets and a kind of a Chizo ratchet that worked, and then I had a few Craftsman wrenches, and because of the fact that there were no other real wrenches out there, I mean, and some of the wrenches I had were just out of toolkits of motorcycles. And so with all that being said, the advice I got from the guy that had that Waterloo toolbox, he said, basically one of the best things that you can do, the first thing you really need if you can be successful at being a motorcycle mechanic, is get yourself a good set of Snap-on screwdrivers. They are just so much better than anything else. Okay, and so I'm like, oh man, that's expensive. And then he said, and then after that, you should get yourself a good set of Snap-on sockets and a ratchet, and at least get started with that, and then start collecting wrenches. And that was all very, very good advice. So the first thing I really did is the first time I really went on to the Snap-on truck is I said, I'm new here and I'm just learning this stuff, but I do need to get some screwdrivers so that I can do this. And you need a good number. Yeah, you definitely need a good number 3 and a good number 2 to get going. And I'll remember this to the day I die. The guy looked at me and he said, listen, what do you need? Tell me what you need. I'll get it to you, and you can pay me a few bucks a week. And so you can make a living. We're not going to charge any interest or anything like that, but we're going to give you enough credit so at least you can buy the tools that you need so you can make a living. And if you think about that, that's a pretty powerful statement for the young mechanic. So what he did is he handed me a set of 3 screwdrivers, just a number 1, a number 2, and a number 3 Phillips, and a small straight blade, a medium, and a larger straight blade. All 3 of those. And I still have those screwdrivers today. I still do. Um, the But all of a sudden, I had some tools that I could do my job with. And if you think about it, Sears wasn't going to do that for me. The Allied Auto, who had Proto, wasn't going to do that for me. The only other person that would help down those lines was the Mac dealer, and the Mac dealers had good stuff. I bought a lot of Mac tools. Eventually, a lot of those Mac tools got replaced, but it was something to think about. And this is one of the reasons Snap-on, and to this day, does the same thing. You get somebody, a young mechanic that is, really wants to be a mechanic and wants to make their living. These guys in the trucks, that's their money. They have to go buy those tools. Snap-on doesn't give them to them and then say, oh yeah, you get them out to your customers. They buy those tools at their prices and with, their discount prices, and they just hand them out there. And they collect the those little payments. And I've seen all sorts of websites. Oh, the Tools Tuck pirates, you're paying on this stuff forever. Yeah, it allows people to make their living. So anyway, so much about that. But what tools do you need? Okay, if you are not making your living with tools, you have a ton of choices. Just again, you can go to Harbor Freight and get everything you need and be quite happy with what you get. I'm not here to say, oh yeah, this tool is better than that tool. The only thing I will say is the experiences that I've had. And one of the experiences that I've had is a professional mechanic. And being a professional mechanic, you work something called flat rate. Okay? And for those of you who haven't done flat rate, here's what it means. When a job comes in, let's just say it's a motorcycle clutch, for example, and this motorcycle clutch needs to be replaced. And so what you do is there's a book, and it's called the flat rate book, and it says that the motorcycle clutch in this particular motorcycle takes 1 hour, just for the sake of conversation, whatever it is. But that's what it says. And so here's how it works. You, as the mechanic, get the job to put in a clutch. It is a 1 hour job. So let's just say you're not very good at what you have, or your tools suck or whatever, and it takes you 2 hours to get that job done. Whatever. Because your screwdrivers are all screwy or whatever it's going to be, and you can't do it, but it just takes you a long time and you're just learning or whatever, and it takes you 2 hours. You're going to get paid for 1 hour, period. It does not matter. You're going to get paid for 1 hour. It doesn't matter that it took you 2 hours because something else was goofy or whatever it was. You get paid for 1 hour. But there's the flip coin of that. And the flip coin of that is saying, well, it's a 1 hour job, and I can get it, and you do it in a half an hour. It only took you half an hour to do it. Great. Guess what? You get paid for 1 hour. And the flat rate mechanic does their very best, and this is the way that it all works. They just don't pay these mechanics. Oh yeah, you get paid, whatever the wage is. It's flat rate. It says this is what it takes you. This is what, when we collect from the customer, you're going to get a portion of that. Okay, and because they charge the customer a flat rate amount. Whatever their labor charge is, it says if it takes an hour and their labor rate is $200 an hour, that's what they charge, 200 bucks. So you to you that is time is money. And as you start to understand the quality of tools that you get, you find out that a really, really good tool, seldom do you break one. I have never really broken a tool, not in the motorcycle trade. I just don't. Um, but what's important is maybe the thickness of the head of a socket, or the head of a ratchet, or the thickness of a wrench, or the overall size of a wrench, or being able to the right angles and how well a wrench fits and it doesn't want to stretch out. This is where the quality comes in. These, even when you're really reefing on something, a wrench will stretch a little bit. It's not going to break. You can replace it or do whatever, but it's going to stretch a little bit. And just because a wrench is hard doesn't mean it's good. It means that you have to find the type of wrench or socket or whatever it's going to be that has the right metallurgy in it. Um, it so it doesn't break, but it also doesn't stretch too much. And there's a whole science that goes along with that. Um, a socket that's got a big fat wall on it, and Craftsman sockets have been notorious for that. The walls are fat to get the strength that they want, and that's because the metallurgy is different. Um, the there's all sorts of different tools and things like that, but when it comes down to it, and then another thing is if you're into this like I am for life, and you buy a tool, well, is that company going to be there in 50 years? Okay. Um, for the most part, Snap-on's been around for over 100 years. They have what they do is they have honored their warranty from day one. And you buy a Snap-on tool, and the guy comes back and they break it or whatever, and they learn from that tool. They said, hey, wait a minute, it went back, and why did it break? Is it too hard? Is it too soft? Is it too what? And they have all that experience and they engineer it in. So they have a base of engineering that is second to none. Easy, whether it be Icon or whatever. And they say, well, yeah, the Icon people stole the Snap-on engineer. Well, but they didn't get all the data that Snap-on has been gathering for all this time, and Mac the same way. The problem is with Mac, in my opinion, is Mac makes some great tools. I've got some Mac tools that you couldn't pry out of my cold, dead fingers. They are just, those are my tools. But what's happened to Mac is over time, the company has been sold and the quality changes. For example, I've got this wrench that I bought. This is a Mac wrench, and it's got a swivel 6-point socket on it. It is this tool is paid for itself 100 times over. I've got a whole set of them. I got the entire set of metrics that go along with it. And I don't know if you can see, but the quality of the tool is just, it got kind of a sandblasted look, and the edges are kind of chromed up. And in here you can see that the edges of the tool have been, they've kind of flared out a little bit, but that's all right. The important part is the 6-point socket on the bottom. Working on old Kawasaki's, the filter on the bottom, which was made out of the bolt was made out of a very, very soft metal. And and sometimes it's really hard to get in underneath them because they're low and whatever, and getting a ratchet and a socket on there was a pain. These wrenches, you could just get in at the right angle and pop it loose, and they worth their weight in gold. But so we have this wrench. Well, a few years later, I was completing a set. Now, when I was working on Kawasaki's and Yamahas at first, there were almost 12 millimeter wrenches were very seldom used. Everything was a 13. So later on, I bought a 12 millimeter to complete my set. And something had happened. The quality of the wrench looks like it may have improved, but definitely the finish had. If you can look here, you can see how dull this is, and then the finish of this. So there's an inconsistent quality on that. And then that's because, well, we don't know, but they changed the design of it, and fine, you get a nicer looking wrench. Great. And then I bought an 11 millimeter, and the quality went back to whatever. And it may be just this wrench had not been around or been around and but just staying in stock or whatever. And then a 10 millimeter wrench, I had lost my 10 millimeter somehow, and I ended up buying a new one. So it's got the pretty quality again. Well, the problem is with all of that is today, if one of those wrenches broke and I needed a new one, not going to happen. They don't make them anymore. Can't get them. Companies change and you can't get it. So this is it. This is all you get. If I can find another one on eBay, if I broke one, well, or lost one or whatever, but other than that, I'm SOL. Just, it ain't going to happen. Now, not the same with Snap-on. Snap-on wrenches, they've been making them forever. The only thing that's ever changed with Snap-on here is with these wrenches, they've changed the logo a little bit. And so there's an old scroll type logo, and I got one here with I don't know if we can see it. But this one has more of a scrolly logo on it, and this one has the newer, more modern looking Snap-on. So that's the only thing that's changed on those. But you can get those wrenches, and they have swivels, but they're 12 point, but they still make those, and you can still get them. Snap-on does update stuff, okay? And I have broken a Snap-on tool. I broke when they first came out with the dead blow hammers, the plastic they used, I guess, was whatever it was, whatever the technology was at the time. And 30 years later, I picked up a hammer, and I hit the handle on something. I was hitting it, and the handle, it was just one big plastic cast piece, and the handle broke. And so now I don't deal with tool trucks. I'm just a shop here. The tool trucks don't come by here, and I'm not buying tools at any great rate. So I emailed Snap-on, and I said, here, this is a model this is a part number, whatever. And they said, well, we don't make that one anymore, but we have an upgraded version of it for you, which is we've upgraded it. And their comment was, don't throw away your old tool until the new one comes in. Not some big giant size questionnaire of like, where did you do this, and where did you get it? What is this? What is that? Oh, no BS. This is a 30-year-old tool. Boom, you got it. And everybody says, well, you can do the same thing with Craftsman. You absolutely can. If they have it, if they make it, whatever. That Craftsman has been changed hands how many times, nobody knows. So those are the types of things that you have to consider when you're buying tools, especially if you're a lifelonger like me. I am a lifelong person when it comes to tools. So with all that being said, we can then talk about other types of things. Let's go talk about a Harbor Freight warranty. Well, they got a lifetime warranty. Well, there's a little bit of an issue there. Let's say you buy a set of sockets, and the socket comes in a set, and you have lost your 10 millimeter socket. You just lost it. As we know, they fall into black holes into some other dimension and stay there. That's just what they do. And sometimes they pop back out, maybe a year later, but wherever they go, they go. But you do break a socket, which you can. I have broken a Harbor Freight socket, and you go in and with your little socket enhancer, I need a new one. They go, that's part of the set, and we can't replace it unless we have the whole set. We can replace the whole set for you. Well, the problem is that you don't have that 10mm socket anymore. Gone. Who knows where it went? It fell into the black hole. Well, you're SOL. They will not replace it. They just won't do it. They won't replace. You've got this other broken socket. You got to do the whole set. So, those are things to be aware of. Not saying that it happens all the time. If they sell them individually, you're all set. No problem. But if it comes as part of the set, you have to have the whole set to return, which is not a good thing. Then there is the other thing. A professional mechanic will look at again, like the thickness of a ratchet. And in this case, you may look at a ratchet and the thickness of the head here and the width of the head here. And this is a 3/8 ratchet, and it's not the smallest in the world, but I've got other ratchets that are just much larger. Now, what's interesting is this ratchet. They are both the same size. Look at the head on that. But this is a 1/2-inch ratchet. And this is the world's smallest head. So if you've got a 1/2-inch socket that you need to be working on, this ratchet head is going to fit where a lot of others don't. It is truly a really useful tool. And the same thing can be said for the 3/8 version. Let's see if I can find it. This is a 3/8 ratchet. It is just a tiny little guy. And basically, this thing can be used, and I've had this ratchet for probably 45 years. And I think I can find another one here. Yep. I have a second version of it, exactly the same size. It's a little teeny tiny ratchet with 3/8 head on it, with a long handle on it. This thing has been with me for probably close to 45, 50 years. It's got the old scroll logo on it and so on and so forth, but has been a faithful ratchet. It has been used, it got used daily, and it still gets used daily. And it's still with me, and it's still perfect, and it's still just as smooth as glass to ratchet. It is just as good a ratchet as it gets. So these are types of things that Snap-on offers. And again, if I need parts for these, no problem. Here's what, you can get rebuild kits for these. There they are. So, things to consider when you get tools. Now, so now we've kind of covered what some brands, again, I have some Mac tools that I just love. I've had them forever. I've got some Craftsman tools that you couldn't pry out of my cold dead fingers. Here's an old Craftsman vernier calipers. These things I've used these things long before the digitals came out. I use these things for a couple dozen years of use every single day, and they are just as good as they get. They're made by Craftsman, or for Craftsman, whatever they are. It says made in Germany, so whatever it was. But this is a dynamite set of vernier calipers. I just love them. I've used them so many times. I've dug a hole through the cover. I've got a good set of Mitutoyo verniers, digitals. I bought those a long time ago. So it's a good quality tool, and I'll have that forever. So those are types of things to look at. I have a bunch of Harbor Freight tools. Now, when should you buy Harbor Freight? Well, I can think of a lot of reasons to buy Harbor Freight. First of all, If you need something, you're trying in the middle of a job, you can run down there and get it. It's there. The Harbor Freight store we have now, that thing's, boy, that's just fantastic. The thing is huge. Um, and you can get what you need. And second of all, if you're not making your living with tools, well, and you're going to use it once or twice, why spend big bucks? I mean, unless you're a collector and whatever. Now, on the other hand, if you use something all the time, then you start to consider, maybe I need to get a better brand. Maybe I do need to get a set of Snap-ons. It's, again, Snap-on will make your eyes water. But on the other hand, let's go talk about pliers. This is a kind of a recent acquisition, but this is a pair of the world's heaviest duty needle nose. They are slip joint, so that means you can do different things with them. But one of the things about Snap-on pliers that people don't understand, and I've got two sets of pliers here. This is a set of Snap-on duckbill pliers. They are flat, and you use them for, I use the heck out of these things. This is a pair of Mac duckbill pliers. They're basically the same thing. And I have dunked the handles. This didn't have any rubber. The Macs didn't have any rubber on them, but I dunk them because I like to have the rubber just because. And the deal is here though is the jaws. When we look at the jaws of the two of them, and I don't know if I can show you, you're not going to be able to see the difference, but on these Macs, the hatching inside that grabs onto stuff is worn out. It's just worn out. It's almost non-existent. The Snap-ons are like new. They are still there. They're still sharp. I can grab onto things and get a grip on it. These pliers are almost exactly the same age. I have used them consistently the same. What has happened is because these are worn out, I will use them on things that are lighter or something of that nature, or I don't want to leave an impression on it. So, but all in all, these have been used equally, and the condition of the Snap-ons, which is, again, these are old logo type Snap-ons. I've had these for many, 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 many years, are in 5 times as good a shape as the Mac. Just as an example, it's an apples to apples comparison. And again, pliers are one of the things that I've got some Craftsman. Let me go get them. Here is a set of Craftsman diagonal wire cutters, side cutters, diagonal wire cutters. This is the biggest piece of crap in the entire world. This thing does not cut for crap. It hasn't been used that much, and it was I bought it because I thought the head was kind of narrow and neat, and I could use it, but it is a piece of garbage. Now I've got some Snap-ons here, which again are old logo, and I bought these probably 50 years ago. And again, I just went ahead. It didn't have handles on it, and I dunked them. These things cut like new. The jaws are still perfect. I have cut so much stuff with this, super hard things, and they are just wonderful. So there is a difference in some of those when you get when you look at pliers and things like that. So yeah, the problem is those pliers cost 3 times as much. Well, no, maybe not 3, but 2 times as much as a good set. But I know they're going to last. And I know if I have a problem with them, there's no problem. I just email Snap-on, and a new one arrives. That's what it is. It's just the way it works. So anyway, that's just something to consider. Now, again, if you're not making your living with these things and you don't use them that much, why in the world would you need Snap-on? You just don't, you know. It's unless you're, but if you're like me, I love tools. I truly love them. I think that it's one of the things in my life that I collect. I really don't collect much of anything except for a bunch of motorcycles. But I don't collect anything, but I do collect tools. They are one of those things that when I go to do a job, I know I've got the tool I need for it and maybe a snap-on or whatever it is. Oh man, it makes the job just that much more pleasurable. It truly does. When you love working on things, which I do, having the right tools just makes it just a pleasure. There's something that does happen though, if you're working on something and you love it and you have a crappy tool that works, you're cussing and whatever, you just hate it. It's like this piece of crap. It's tools are subjective. Again, you have to love them. If when it comes to, if you're not making your living with them, that's when getting snap-ons or something like that, you have to have a love of tools and have an understanding. I have used all these tools. I've had tons of Mac tools. I had, Mac sockets, Mac wrenches. I still have Mac wrenches. I've got Mac screwdrivers. I've got one Mac screwdriver that I just love. That thing is dynamite. It's a great screwdriver. And every now and again, but I don't think the new ones are as good. I'm not going to say that for sure, but I do know that this old Mac screwdriver, which kind of looks like a Craftsman handle, but this is a Mac, and it's a number 2 screwdriver, and this bad boy has been through hell, and it is still in really good shape. And when you need something that works well, it's great. I just love it, But then again, too, nothing but nothing. Whoops, let me get a number 2. Nothing but nothing beats the Snap-on handles. These things are so grippy and so comfortable that if you're using these tools all day long, the Snap-on handle, and they've been imitated since Snap-on's been doing tools. Years ago, the very first handles, this is an original Snap-on handle. I don't have it. I've replaced the handles because they update their handles sometimes, and you can buy handles from Snap-on. They will sell you the handles. So if you have a screwdriver that's in really good condition, but the handle is not, they've upgraded, you can buy a handle and put it on there. You're good. But this is an original Snap-on handle, and they were the handles to have. They really were. They were as good, the best grip of all of them. They were great. And then they upgraded to a different style. And that style looks like, let's see, well, kind of like this. It's a little more refined, and it's got a good grip on it, and the grip helped a little bit, and they actually grew. This is a ratchet, so it's got a little bit slightly smaller handle on it. And then they went to the soft grip, like I just showed you on that. And now soft grips are dynamite. But if you look across the board, everybody who's done everything, they just copy what Snap-on did. So that's something to be considered with all of this. It's again, this is all about what type of tools that you buy, and what do you need, and what do you love. Again, so I'm a tool lover. So yeah, if I could have everything Snap-on, great. But I don't do that. I do go to Harbor Freight. A lot of my power tools are Harbor Freight. They just are. When they have a sale on angle grinders, I'll grab 2. Because sometimes they're only like $10, $12. And hey, you know, you need an M grunt. So if you have a whole bunch of them, it's nice to have um, different, you know, like flap discs or cutoff wheels or whatever you want on that. Um, you know, and then I buy a lot of tools from off of Amazon. If there are times when it just makes sense. I just, you know, I'm not going to need it right away. And so I will go on ahead and look at Amazon, find the best price, and it's delivered to my door. Hey, you know, so you look at those. But now we need to move into, what do you really need? Okay. Um, so whatever storage there is, that's another thing that you need to consider. Um, there are some good toolboxes out there. Um, I'm going to say that the U.S. General or the Icons, those are decent toolboxes. There is nothing wrong with them. They will work forever. The issue is, and don't get me wrong here, but one of the issues is when you walk into, if you're going to be a professional mechanic, and this is just for the pros. If you're going to be a professional mechanic, the owner of the shop, when they hire you, whatever it's going to be, when you roll in your toolbox, and sometimes you roll them in, and because sometimes they're big and whatever, or you know, whatever size is necessary for what you need, they look at what you roll in. They look at your tools and they do a bit of judgment on you. You can say that they don't, but they do. You could be the best mechanic in the world, but if your tools suck, people look at you slightly differently. Okay, they think that you don't take your job seriously, and believe me, I've been there and done that. I've had Mac toolboxes, and Mac toolbox. If you come in with a Mac toolbox, you're good. They think you take your job seriously. It's when you start coming in with the U.S. General or something like that, people have a slightly biased, and they will judge you. Doesn't mean they all do, but most of them, they're really, really, you know, if you really want to get where the high paying shops, you will see, you go look into the high paying shops and you're going to see Snap on everywhere you go. And even the customers who know about tools is, I see somebody, and again, this is just me, and just because I'm a tool snob, um, uh, I go in and if I have warranty work on a car or something like that, um, and I go in and the mechanic working on it is working out of you know, some weird toolbox. I'm like, what do they really take their job seriously, or are they just here to, you know, do whatever? I don't know. It's just me. Again, I'm a snob. Um, so me, this toolbox, which I'll get out of the way. This toolbox, I bought brand new in 1976. Um, this is probably my third iteration. When I first got it, when I first started out, like I said a little bit before, what I had is a little Craftsman roll around and a little 4 or 5 drawer little toolbox that's set on top of it. Matter of fact, I still have it. It's way over there. I don't even know what the brand is. And I think I got it from the Mac toolbox truck used. It was just cheap. I got it, and I had something to put tools in. And then I bought a rather large Mac box, not the largest one. Well, it may have been the largest one they had at the time. And it was probably about this tall, and it was a nice box. It really was. But I actually filled it up and I ran out of room. And then this box right here is, you've seen it if you've looked at any tools or looked through, you know, you can see all these toolboxes. They're huge. But at the time, in 1976, this was the largest box that Snap-on made. And what was nice about this is its little drawers. It's got these nice little drawers on the side that are just dynamite for putting in little stuff, your screwdrivers and whatnot. You have all of that. And so it was a nice box. And so I got this one and today, and it doesn't have the roller drawers in it. It's still, they didn't have roller drawers. There was no such thing. And so, but this box, these drawers are so smooth and so nice. All these years later, again, I bought this new in 1976. So what are we talking about? We're talking 49 years, or yeah, 49 years ago. And these drawers are just as smooth as glass. And I actually like them better than the roller drawers because they don't just slam closed. It's smooth and nice all the way through, and it closes, all the drawers open and close so nicely. But that's just personal preference. So here I am, and 30 years later, now, what, 25 years later, I needed some more storage. And I think we can see it in there. Yeah, you can still see it. Is this side box was, again, this is 30 years later after these come out. I needed more storage. And so I bought this side box, and it does have roller drawers in it. And again, it's a little too smooth because now your tools are shuffling around in there if you don't have everything latched down. But what's nice about this is, let's see if we can see it, is, and I'll bring that down, is all the drawers are still the same dimensions all the way across. This box, other than the only thing different about it is this little strip right here is different. This was the original chrome strip, and later when they sell these boxes, they widened that up a little bit. I don't know why, but they did. But they widened it up. But again, everything lines up. I have a toolbox I can use that fits the theme. So those are some of the things that, how I feel about whatever. Again, I have no qualms about buying any brand of anything as long as it's reasonably good quality. I won't buy cheap, super cheap stuff, even if I'm only going to use it once. I will try and up the quality a little bit. Doesn't mean I'm going to go buy a Snap-on, because sometimes that's just silly. But I'll go to Harbor Freight and buy stuff. I tried to avoid cheap wrenches. Except for, let's talk about this. Let's say you have a toolbox that you've got to take somewhere, that you're going to go work on something, and tools can get lost. Cheap tools, perfect. Tools you're going to be modifying. If you need to grind on something, it's not bad to have an old cheap set of wrenches floating around that you can go grind and weld and do something so you can make a special tool to make it work. That is one of the things that is always, always, always happening. I've got tools that are modified. If you need a super thin wrench or whatever, I'm not going to grind up on the Snap-on, but I'll grab a Pittsburgh any day and grind that sucker down to nothing, and if it helps me get the job done, great. And that tool will get thrown back in a box somewhere, and away it goes. Or tools that may have to sit out in a place where things could get rusty and stuff. Why spend good money on stuff like that? It's expendable. There are expendable tools that go out there. I've got plenty of expendable tools. But on the other hand, I keep them all. Except for I bought some gimmicks, Craftsman that you have where you can, the wrench has got a little cutout in it, and it kind of acts like a ratcheting wrench. And I bought a set of those thinking, hey, that's great. Those will work good for that kind of stuff, because sometimes you need that. You don't want to be pulling it out. Those were the biggest pieces of crap. I just gave them away to my friend. They were just garbage. But I ended up buying a set of Snap-ons, and they have this really weird little cutout in them. I don't know if you can see it, but these things work great. These things, a great ratcheting wrench. And it's long before the actual ratcheting, they've had ratcheting wrenches for a long time. but this is not ratcheting. It just kind of grabs onto the next thing and it works. They work well. So that's something to consider. Then it comes to organization. And organizing tools can be tough, especially as you get more. My problem is I'm out of space. Every wall in this place is just filled with tools and stuff and equipment and whatever, and I don't have a lot of space to do this stuff. And I like to have everything in here, and I really don't want to buy a bigger toolbox. Got no place to put it. It just isn't practical. So organization is something that you have to consider, especially if you're a tool lover. It's nice to have everything organized so you can see everything that you got and whatever and be able to find something. Organization is mega important when you're a flat rate mechanic. Flat rate, again, time is money. You do not need to go looking for tools. You need to just have a place for them, be able to go into your box and get the tool that you need right away and have it. It is super important, and having a good quality tool will pay for itself 1,000 times, well, not 1,000 times over, but it'll pay for itself many times over. The money you make when you, especially working flat rate, because if you can change a clutch, that clutch thing in a half an hour instead of an hour, you can get started on the next job. And if you can cut that down, you can make double your wages in a day. It can be done. You do a lot of jobs repetitively. I could change a frame on a Z1 Kawasaki in half of what flat rate said. I just got good at it. I did it so many times, and I knew the tools that I needed. My tools were really good. I had the right impacts to do whatever. It just worked out, and I made a lot of money on flat rate. It still, again, making your living as a mechanic can be a very tough life, especially in an area like this, especially a motorcycle mechanic, where we have very long winters. And at the end of the winter, the shop owners are, they're starting to stress out because they're just not making any money. They're not, selling stuff. And even though I always had a job during the winter, they would fire everybody and leave me around. Because I was a good, competent mechanic, but I was fast, good tools and understanding that type of stuff. They would always have me around, but it was stressful. It was extremely stressful. They're stressed out, you're stressed out. It's not good. So anyway, I had to get into. I ended up going into gaming, casino gaming, working at Harrah's for over a dozen years there. And then I worked at IGT, the world's largest slot machine manufacturer, as staff engineer for over 18 years. So I have been around. So my main thing is I'm an idiot. But when it comes to slot machine and motorcycles, listen to me. In our next segment, we'll be looking at some of the other types of tools that you need. This is just an explanation of what tools you may want to have and where you fit into the realm of these things. And you can think about what you do and understand what you need. And think about where you might be going with it. Well, you may never be a professional mechanic. For some people, that just isn't it. But doing a hobby where you can go in and build a motorcycle and be able to build one from scratch and, learn some welding and stuff like that, there is no better hobby out there. And there is no better thing to have than to be able to grab a great tool and go work on this stuff and just make every job a pleasure. Crappy tools take away from that experience. But again, being able to do your own work and have a satisfying experience, whether it be changing your oil, adjusting your valves, changing your clutch, or going in and I had just had a catastrophe on my H2, the supercharged Kawasaki. It dropped the valve after 81,000 miles, and the head of the tip of the valve broke off, and it dropped down in, bent, and so the engine had to come out and do whatever. But again, it took me a week to get parts, and in a couple weeks the thing was back together. And the whole thing cost me, well, I got some extra parts. Um, I picked up an extra oil pump chain and a couple other little pieces, but even including that chain, the whole thing cost me $360 to deal with. That's including all the lubricants and stuff like that. Head gaskets and new valves, all the things that I needed to get it done. And in 2 weeks it was done. And I had the satisfaction of getting it done without spending a ton of money. And I also know that it's done right. So doing things yourself and having the tools to do it makes a big, big difference. And so that does it for this video. In our next video, we'll go on ahead and explore the tools that you might need in your shop to get certain jobs done. I'll go around and show you what I've got and how I've got some things organized. Doesn't mean I have the best organization because I'm kind of out of room, but we will see what we can do to help somebody who's getting started. Maybe think about some of the tools that you need to kind of get your shop going. I mean, in maybe into even your garage. Things like a drill press. You don't need to buy the world's best drill press. Mine's a Harbor Freight. I just modify a few things. And then, but I've got a lathe and I've got grinders and buffers and things like that. But there are things you can buy that just will get you by, and you can do a very, very good job of building, repairing, doing the things that you need to do. And on top of that, you can also, having good equipment allows you to work on your cars and stuff like that, which can be, a big, big money saver. So anyway, thanks for watching. I hope you've learned a little bit of something about tools and why people pick the type of tools that they do. And again, in the next video, we'll go through and look at the tools that you might want to have, or at least what I've got, and say, oh, that's good. Oh, yeah, I don't need one of those. In welding supplies and things like that. I've got different welders and things like that. So anyway, we'll see you next time. Thanks for watching. Please don't forget to subscribe and like, and we will see you next time.